Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov. So, I imagine I'm not the only one who didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I kept waking up and remembering the news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and just curling up into my comforter, which I guess is why they call it a comforter. All morning I keep finding myself suddenly in tears. I am crying for our fragile democracy, and I am crying for Ruth. But I'm also crying because I'm scared. I'm scared for my kids and for their future, and for, truthfully, all of those black and brown and queer and trans and undocumented little ones in a world without that amazing 87-year-old real-life Jewish superhero. Throughout these last few years, as we've seen American democracy seem to slip away and white nationalism once again occupy the White House, as I personally have moved from someone who used to give sermons about how American Jews need to get past anti-Semitism as our driving force, to someone who now receives personal anti-Semitic white nationalist threats at least once a week. As we've witnessed this mutation, I have taken solace in Jewish history. This isn't our first tyrant, and this isn't even our first global pandemic. And so I keep coming back to these classic words from the Mishnah, from Pirkei Avot, that says, Uv makom she'en anashim, hishtadel lihiyot ish. When you find yourself in a place without humans, strive to be humane. Now, the original Hebrew is a little more gendered than that. Maybe something like, when you find yourself in a place without any men, strive to be a man. But for today, I would like to offer one more interpretive spin on this ancient saying. In a world that is filled with far, far too many Mitches, strive to be a Ruth. When we look out and we feel like the light is fading and the world is heading into sundown, be like Ruth, who created the entire corpus of gender equity law that now exists by taking the long game, by recognizing that revolutions happen over decades and that real change makers never quit. When we feel like despair, like we have no more energy left to give to this world or to this movement, and no more optimism to light our way, be like Ruth, who looked at an anti-democratic Senate and looked at her own body racked with cancer and fought every single day for every single one of us. And when it's all too much and we can't bear to keep fighting, be like Ruth, who is as beloved by her grandchildren as she is by all of us, and renewed her own soul through the nourishment of her community and of her tradition, and whose memory will certainly be a blessing for all of us. But it's not enough for her memory to be a blessing, because she's not here anymore. It has to be us. We have to carry the weight that she carried on those mighty 87-year-old shoulders. We have to be like Ruth. And so we insist on seizing this day, on seizing this year of 5781. Modeh ani lefanecha, moda ani lefanecha. We have been given another day for our souls to do the sacred work of tikkun, of repairing the brokenness. So it is time to get to work. It is time to be like Ruth.
Lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam modehani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam modehani lefanecha. lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam.
And so, hopefully awake, hopefully prepared for the work of this day and of this year and of this time when we do this cheshbon hanefesh, this accounting of the gap between the people we have been and the people we are called to become. We turn towards each other for this moment of Baruch Hu, where traditionally we turn towards Jerusalem. But I've loved, since the beginning of this pandemic, I keep coming back to this idea that if we are all turning towards Jerusalem, somehow we are all turning towards each other. So whether it's spiritually or physically, we invite you to rise as we call each other to prayer, to the words of Baruch Hu.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been a hero of mine for as long as I can remember. Everything I learned about her made me admire her even more. In 2005, I even slept outside of the Supreme Court because I'd heard that a few people who got in line early enough would be let in to hear the rulings and see all the justices. I was one of the lucky ones, and I got to see my hero in action that summer. Last night, when I couldn't sleep, I kept thinking about the magnitude of the change Justice Ginsburg brought to our world and to our lives. So many of us, myself included, wouldn't be who we are today or where we are today without her influence. So as we move into the Shema, tradition teaches that we cover our eyes so that we can hear Shema even better. Today, as we say the Shema, we open up our ears to those who need us even more now that Justice Ginsburg is gone. Her loss creates such a deep, painful void for so many of us. One way we can honor her memory is by carrying her legacy forward and listening for the ways we ourselves can bring even more change to our world.
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema 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 Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Adonai Echad. Adonai Echad.
I think the first time I heard the Ve'ahavta connected to the word halavai was from our climate change prophet, Arthur Waskow, whose words of interpretation of this prayer are in our Machzor, and I believe are in our Sidur as well. The Ve'ahavta is a response to the Shema. What will we do to honor the oneness of creation? And so it says, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'otecha. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Alavai. Alavai is an ancient Aramaic word that migrated to modern Hebrew, and it means if only. Alavai, if only we would know how to love God with all our hearts, all our souls, and all our stuff. Take to heart these words which I command you this day. Teach them diligently to your children. Alavai. Speak of them when you are at home, and when you are away, and when you lie down, and when you arise. Halavai. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as symbols between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Halavai. Remember to do all my commandments. Remember to be holy to your God, for I am your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your God. Alavai, Alavai. And if you act on the teachings that you hear this day from Yahweh, Yud He Vav He, the breath of life, especially the teaching that there is unity in the world and interconnection among all its parts, then the rains will fall as they should, the rivers will run, and the heavens will smile, and the good earth will feed you. Halavai, Alavai. But if you chop the world up into parts and choose one or a few to worship, like gods of wealth, power, and greed, doing and making without pause, then the rain will not fall in its time. The rivers will not run, or they will overflow, because you have left no earth where the rain can soak in. And the heavens themselves will become your enemy. The ozone layer will cease shielding you. The carbon dioxide will pour into the air and scorch your planet, and you will then perish from the good earth that the breath of life has given to you. But following this prayer is always a reminder. The words of the Michamocha, a reminder that it is not too late, that long ago we got up and we moved. We changed the paradigm. We got up from our stuck place and we actually moved out of being stuck into the waters that would deliver us to a new paradigm, a better time, a better way of being with each other and creation. And so in every service we do sing the same words that Moses and Miriam and all of the people of Israel sang at the shores of the sea.
Mikamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mikamocha dar ba'kodesh, Norati lo tosef eleh, Shira chadasha, Shibechu gilim l'shimcha sfat hayam, Yachad, 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 Yachad kulam, kulam, Hodu imlichu yameru. Adonai imlo, Adonai Adonai Imloch Leolam Voed Adonai Imloch Adonai Imloch Adonai Imloch Leolam Voed Adonai Imloch Adonai Imloch Leolam Voed Adonai Imloch Adonai Imloch Adonai Imloch Leolam Voed Leolam Voed Voed Sur Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Ufedechinu Mecha Yehuda V'Yisrael Go'alinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael Then Miriam, Haniviyah, the prophetess, she took a drum in her hand and we followed her with drums and dancing, and Miriam chanted with us. Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a. Sus v'rochbo rama v'yam, Sus v'rochbo rama v'yam, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'u ga'a. We continue with Vishamaru.
Vishamaru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי וביום השני Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash, V'shamnu b'nei Yisrael HaShabbat, asod et HaShabbat ledoratam berit olam. V'shamnu b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, asod et HaShabbat ledoratam berit olam, ledoratam berit olam.
To begin the prayers from Tefillah, we have the Psalm of Opening, that we have open hearts and open minds, open arms, and our mouths open to sing and say good, kind, loving, and holy words. Adonai Sifetai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha.
Sifetai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha, havaya. Sifetai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Yada da da ya ya, yada da 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 da, yada da da, yada da, yada da, yada da Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloheinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Leah Elohei Rachel Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. Zochrenu, remember us. Remember us for life, and write us in the book of life for yet another year. So the term Rosh HaShanah is a wonderful Hebrew term, because the word Rosh means head, and Shana is year, so it is literally the head of the year, the beginning of the year. And also, the word Shana and the word Shinui, another Hebrew word, share the same root. And Shinui means change. And so when we say Rosh HaShanah, we are saying the head of the year, but it can also be considered the head or the beginning of change, of transformation. We resolve to have the spiritual strength, the givurot, to change, to transform, to do better, to be better this year. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai mechayei hakol ata rav lehoshia mechalkel chayim bechesed mechayei hakol berachamim rabim somech noflim v'rofeh cholim umatir asurim umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha baal givurot umidom melach melech beimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'aman ata lahachayot hakol baruch ata Adonai mechaye hakol.
On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed, how many will die and how many will come to be. We declare the holiness of this day with this medieval piyut, with this poem. Unatana Tokef Kedushat Hayom. This poem holds the key to these holy days. For this is the day that humanity is judged. That we must be held accountable for our personal and collective sins. For it says, our origins are dust, and our end will be dust, but we are but a dream that flies away. But the poet does not want to depress us. We do a good enough job of this ourselves. Rather, this poet wants us to believe that forgiveness is possible, that every single one of our lives has meaning. This poem is a wake-up call to the awful truth of death. and dares us to love more and to live more with the time we have, with more awareness, more intention. Abraham Joshua Heschel said that this piyut, this poem prayer, teaches us that there is meaning beyond the absurdity of today, and that whatever the circumstances are, we are to build our lives as works of art. I love that. To build our lives as works of art. The poem gave birth to a legend that Rabbi Amnon of Mayence chose to die rather than to give up his faith, but the poem does not celebrate martyrdom or the many ways that we die. No, we miss the point if we do not read to the end and embrace the sacred formula at the end of this poem. The sacred formula that is given to us to shift destiny, the promise that there is a way that we can change ourselves and change the world. Teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah, it says, do temper judgment's severe decrees. We are not helpless, not even today. With the pandemics and the fires and the storms and the disparities, no, we are not helpless even today. For teshuvah, this notion of transformation, tefillah, the challenge to shout out to the universe, to dare to shout out for what it is you need, what it is you want, what it is you desire, whether or not you believe it can happen or not, to name it. And tzedakah, this wonderful opportunity to do acts of loving kindness, acts of tzedakah, acts of righteousness and justice, not just for self-interest, but for the common good. This formula, these three that promise to temper judgment's severe decree, they help us write our own Sefer Chaim, each of us our own book of life.
Uletana tokev kedushat hayom. Who by fire, who by water, who in the sunshine, who in the nighttime, who by high ordeal, who by common trial, who in your merry, merry month of May, who by very slow decay, and who shall I say is calling? Who in her lonely slip, who by barbiturate, who in these realms of love, who by something blunt, who by avalanche, who by powder, who for his greed, who for his hunger, and who shall I say is calling?
We fill in the spaces between us with holiness, with Kedusha.
מקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמרתי שמו טוב בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה באמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ. כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדשך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer, for we have no deeds. Ein banu ma'asim, we have no deeds. This year, that line is my favorite line. Ein banu ma'asim. We don't have any deeds. We don't have it. Not ein banu ma'asim tovim, we don't have any good deeds. We have we have a few good deeds, some not so good deeds, not that. Not we have no merit, not that. We have no deeds in us, neither good deeds nor bad deeds. What does it mean? We are vessels. We are nothing really. We're open for business though. So use us. Fill us up with deeds, because I don't have any. I have none. We're empty and available to be filled up. We've been nothing for a while. And that's not a terrible thing. As a matter of fact, it's a transition thing. On your way to something, you pass through nothing. I have no deeds. So, chanenu v'anenu, be gracious to us. Answer us. Asay imanu, do something. Do tzedakah, charity, and chesed. Do loving kindness. Do that with us. Do that through us. Use us for deeds of love and generosity. Fill us up with deeds of righteousness and goodness. Because ein banu ma'asim, I got nothing of my own. Emptied out. So we ask you, source of life and blessing and holiness, deep well of blessing, justice and love, fill us up with acts of goodness. Then, Hoshienu, save us.
So it's a CRC tradition to have the previous year's bar and bat mitzvah class participate in the high holidays. But like everything else, that got complicated this year. But to start the Torah service, we do have a montage of photos of our students, some celebrating their simcha at CRC, and others at their own home over Zoom. Some members of this class have rescheduled their bar bat mitzvahs into the spring and summer of their 8th grade year. And they were a wonderful class. We did some amazing mitzvahs together before we had to shelter in place, and the organizations and people that these wonderful students helped will remember them always. And I know the students will remember the people and organizations they helped, and make doing mitzvahs a part of their life going forward from their bar and bat mitzvahs, wherever they were and whenever they were. But here is a montage of some of those students at their sacred services.
Baruch Adonai Hamborah. Baruch Adonai Hamborah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
ויהי אחר הגרים האלה והאלוהים נישא את אברהם ויאמר אליו אברהם ויאמר הנני ויאמר קח נא את בנך את יחידך אשר אהבת את יצחק ולך לך אל ארץ המוריה ואלהו שם לעולה על אחר ההרים אשר אמר אליך. And it came to pass after these things that God did try Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, and Abraham said, Here I am. And he said, Kach na, take now your son, your only one, the one that you love, Isaac, and go to the mountain of Moriah and offer him up there as a sacrifice on one of the mountains that I will tell you of. Vayashkem Abraham. Abraham got up in the morning, baboker, ויחבוש את חמורו ויקח את שני נעריו איתו, and he took the two boys with him, ואת יצחק בנו, and Isaac his son, ויבקע עצי העולה, and the wood for the offering, ויקום וילך, and he got up and he went אל המקום אשר אמר לו אלוהים, to the place that God had instructed, and ביום השלישי, on the third day, וישא אברהם את עיניו, Abraham lifted up his eyes, וירא את המקום מרחוק, and he saw the place from the distance, ויאמר אברהם אל נעריו, and Abraham said to the boys, שבו לכם פה עם החמור, stay here with the animal, ואני והנער, me and this lad, נלכה עד כה, ונשתחווה ונשובו, we will bow down and we will return to you. Vayikach Abraham et atzei ha'olah, and Abraham took the wood for the offering, vayasem el Yitzchak beno, and he put it on Isaac his son, vayikach biyado et ha'esh v'et ha'me'achelet, and he took the wood and the knife, v'yechu shnehem yachadav, and the two of them walked on alone. Vayomer Yitzchak, and Isaac said, El Abraham, Avi, Vayomer Avi, and he said, Oh, my father, Vayomer Hineni Venihi, and Abraham said, Here I am, my son, Vayomer Hine Ha'esh V'Ha'etzim, behold, here's the fire and the wood, but where is the animal for the offering? Vayomer Abraham Elohim, and Abraham said, God, your Elohaseh, will see to the animal, Leolah b'nei, as an offering, my son, v'yechu shnehem, and the two of them walked on together. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo Elohim, and they came to the place that God had instructed them. Vayiven sham Abraham et hamizbeach, and Abraham built her an altar. V'yaroch et ha'etzim, and he made nice the wood. V'yakod et Yitzchak beno, and he bound up Isaac his son. V'yasem oto al hamizbeach, and put him on the altar, mima'al ha'etzim, on top of the wood. Vayishlach Abraham et yado, and Abraham stretched out his arm. Vayikach et ma'achelet, and he took the knife, v'lishchot et beno, to offer up his son. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim, and out from the heavens came the voice of an angel. Vayomer Abraham, Abraham, and said, Abraham, Abraham, Vayomer, and Abraham said, Hineni, Vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar, don't stretch out your hand against this lad. V'al ta'as lo miyuman, don't do anything to him. Ki ata yadati, now that I know, ki yarei Elohim, ata v'lo chasachta, because you had not withheld your son, et yechidecha, the only one, mimeni, from me. Vayisa Abraham et einav, and Abraham looked up and he saw, vayar hinei ha'il achar nechas basvach bekarnav, and he saw an animal tangled up in the bushes. Vayelech Abraham vayikach et ha'ayil, and he took the animal, vayelu liolaha tachad beno, and he offered it up instead of his son. Vayikra Abraham Shema makom ahu Adonai Yireh, and Abraham called the name of that place, God will be seen, Asher Yamar Halom, and it's known as that to this day, Bahar Adonai, on the mountain of God, Yireh, God is seen. Vaikra Malach Adonai of Abraham, and the angel said to Abraham, Sheni, the second time, Ina Shamayim, Vayomer Bi Nishpati, Nium Adonai, because you have believed in me, Nium Adonai, Ki Yan Asher Asiti et Advar Azeh, Velo Chasachta, and you have withheld nothing from me, Ki Varecha Varecha, I will bless you, V'yarba V'yarbe Zarecha, and make great your seed, like the stars in the heavens, and like the sands, asher hal svat hayam, the edge of the sea, and he'd baruchu, and all the nations of the world shall be blessed through you, because you listen to my voice. Vayashov Abraham el Na'arav, and Abraham returned to the lads, Vayakumu Vayechu Yachtav, and they went on together, El Be'er Shava, to Be'er Shava, Vayeshev Abraham, and Abraham dwelled Be'er Shava, in Beersheba.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. L'shana tova.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year, everyone.
So, framing that powerful Torah chanting by Rabbi Jim was as The pictures of our students were all around them. Of course, you saw Amy Gage, our just past president, but the Aliyah was Amy's daughter, whose Hebrew name is Menucha. I remember giving her that name at a Friday night service years and years ago. But that was Menucha bat Baruch v'Chaya, who had the Aliyah for Rosh Hashanah morning.
It's a custom while the Torah is still open in front of us. The gates are wide open. And while the gates are wide open, we pray for healing. For the healing of the spirit and the healing of the body. For those we know and for those we don't know. רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, for the healing of the spirit and the healing of the body, for those we know, for those we don't know. On my right the angel Michael, on my left the angel Gabriel, in front of me the angel Uriel, behind me the angel Raphael, and above my head, above my head, above my head Shekhinat El Michael, who is like God, Gabriel, God is my strength, Uriel, Uriel, God is my light, Raphael, God is my healer. Above my head, above my head, above my head, above my head, Shekhinat El. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim, blessed are you, great healer. Amen.
I can't tell you what a blessing and an honor it is to work with this rabbinic team. It fills my heart and soul. And we're going to hear now from Rabbi Daniel with the drash, the sermon for Rosh Hashanah morning. And I think, as you all know, besides doing everything rabbinic, Rabbi Daniel has been a huge force in helping us transition for the time being from in-person to online. So here's Rabbi Daniel.
Shana Tova, Happy New Year. So, I'm kind of notorious among my friends for my sleep habits. Since I was a kid, when I am ready for bed, I am off to bed. It really does not matter what stands in between me and that bed. Dinner party of invited friends that I have that are still hanging out, whatever, they're welcome to stay in my house as long as they want. I'm going to sleep. And trust me when I say you don't ever want to wake me up. Like, ever. When I told Jake Talvey Goodman, who's been one of my closest friends and a partner in crime for my entire life, just ask Rabbi Susan, she'll tell you some stories. When I told Jake what I was talking about for Rosh Hashanah, well, let's just say he used words to describe what it's like to wake me up that I can't use on Rosh Hashanah. Some of the stories, though, are a little less funny. In college, I got a call at 3 a.m. from a friend asking if I could come pick her up in my car because her roommate had gone or was going into anaphylactic shock, was having an allergic reaction, and needed to be rushed to the hospital. I angrily shouted into the phone, "Call an ambulance!" And I hung up and went back to sleep. I woke up the next day feeling ashamed of myself, but mostly I laughed it off. I mean, it was awful, but what could I do? Whatever part of me is thoughtful and compassionate and aware, I like, it is not awake in the middle of the night with me. The only thing awake is some dybbuk of a person who bowls over anything standing in the way of his sleep. The truth is, for as much as I laughed about it at times, none of this was ever really funny. But all of it stopped being funny at all when I became a parent. So, speaking of questionable parenting, we just heard the story of the Akedah, of the binding of Isaac that Rabbi Jim read for us beautifully. I think it says something about our people, about our tradition, that we force ourselves to reckon with the Akedah every year on Rosh HaShanah. The story of a parent commanded by their God to take their beloved child to the top of a mountain, to sacrifice them up as an offering. It is a story that has resonated through the generations. Religious fanatics have long looked to it for inspiration. Israeli parents, for generations, have talked about the act of sending their kids off to serve in the IDF through the lens of the binding and the sacrifice of Isaac. Historians, and I think this is a powerful teaching, historians suggest that the Akedah might actually be best understood as a story meant for ancient ears that said loudly and clearly that we don't sacrifice our children. That's not who we are. But for a moment, I want to hold on to the perspective of the radically traditional ethicists like Yeshayahu Leibowitz, those folks that have said this is in fact what ethics looks like. Because if just for a moment we hold back from questioning the premise, then of course Abraham is doing what is right. His God literally came to tell him to do this. What could possibly be a better reason for his action or any action than that? And so for so many traditional religious thinkers, following the will of God is the same thing. It's the very definition of doing the right thing. And so for a moment, I want to posit this, that Abraham, at least internally in his own mind, was doing the right thing. He was the hero of his own story. Or to say all of this differently, his intentions were exactly in the right place. But it's when we put aside his intentions that I think things get interesting. It's when we put aside his intentions, when we look instead at the impact of his actions, that we tell a very different story. One of the most ancient collections of midrashim that we have, Vayikra Rabbah, says that the sound of the shofar is actually the sound of Sarah Imenu, Sarah, our mother, our ancestor. It's the sound of her heart breaking open as she died from the grief of hearing what her husband had done to their child. But the impact of Abraham's actions don't end just there. Just look at Isaac, who is in so many ways sort of the forgotten middle child of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. In so many ways, he never recovers from this moment. He never emerges as a full character in his own right. He's always clouded as if some part of himself was left up on that mountain, a sacrifice to his father's best intentions. I've kind of become obsessed with this idea. If you've spent time with me in the last year, you've probably heard me go on and on about it. This idea that everyone, all of the time, in almost every moment, acts with the best of intentions. After all, if we didn't think at that moment with the information that we have then, if we didn't think that what we were doing was right, we would have done something else. And so I'm somewhere between terrified and obsessed at the idea that maybe it's our impact that really matters and not our intentions. I worry that it doesn't matter in the end if I consider myself an environmentalist. It doesn't matter that I drive a plug-in electric vehicle. It doesn't matter if I continue to order all of this chazarai from Amazon, pretending that plastic junk and personalized delivery service doesn't have a devastating impact on our planet. I worry that it doesn't matter that I try to be an anti-racist. It doesn't matter that I have a Black Lives Matter sign in my front yard if I send my kids to a private Jewish school and I live in a house my grandpa built out in the lily white suburbs. I worry that it doesn't matter how much I wanted to see my friend or eat that meal. It doesn't matter what I wanted if my actions helped to spread this deadly pandemic to other more vulnerable folk. I worry that it doesn't matter how much I regret it in the morning and how much I wasn't aware of it at the time. If in the moment I say cruel things to people I love, particularly my children, when I am woken from my sleep. Judaism is a really different idea of sin than Christianity. It's so different that I think the word sin doesn't even work. It's been so defined by our Christian cultural context that the Jewish meaning is almost unrecoverable. The word in Hebrew we have is chet. It's actually an archery term. It means to miss the mark, as in you took a shot and you didn't hit the bullseye. And this is the meaning of tshuva. This is where tshuva comes from, that central word, the central value of these days of awe, of these yamim noraim. Tshuva, this word which is so often translated as repentance, actually has at its core turning. Because that's the whole idea, right? If what we did was we missed the mark, then the very first thing that we have to do, if we have any hope of changing, if we have any hope of taking a better shot next time, is figure out what we did wrong, why we missed the mark. I've been thinking a lot about Rosh HaShanah last year, in person. Well, we didn't know to treasure it then, did we? I've been thinking about the tshuva that I wanted to do this year, the ways that I knew that I needed to grow. Grow as a spouse, grow as a child, as a parent, as a friend, as a rabbi, as a human. There were places over this last year that I know my tshuva was real, that I really did narrow the gap between the bullseye version of myself and the way I have actually been living. But there are other ways that I have failed, that I have seen the impact of my actions, but I have excused them because of the best of my intentions. And so this is my challenge for myself, and I guess for all of us, that we take these next 10 days and do the hard, the grueling, the teeth-gnawing work of cheshbon hanefesh, of taking and accounting not of our intentions, but of our impact. Not spending time on what we meant to do, but instead looking at the very real places that we have caused harm and the very real people that we have caused pain. I'm not totally sure what I can do to stop being this awful version of myself when I am woken up. But I am done by forgiving myself by saying that I didn't mean to or I couldn't control it. Because the reality is, it doesn't matter if my behavior means that my kids feel like they can't come to me in the middle of the night when they're scared, because waking me up is scarier than their nightmares. I don't know what to do, but I know that the first step is to pay more attention to my impact and less attention to the best of intentions that I had. And so I wish for all of us in this 5781 that it will be a year of healing, please God, a year of healing, of health, of growth. That it will be a year when we as individuals and we as a nation and we as a shared humanity can come together to take moral responsibility for the power that we do have and reckon with the implications of the actions that we take in our lives. And so we say, Shana Tova Umetuka. May it be a year of sweetness, of joy, and of growth for us all.
So we continue with our shofar service, Seder Kriyat HaShofar, for this Rosh HaShanah morning. And even though the blowing of the shofar on Rosh HaShanah is a biblical decree, it hints at something deeper, a call to each of us. Maimonides, an 11th, 12th century commentator, he writes that the call of the shofar is saying, Wake up, sleepers, from your sleep, and slumberers, arise from your slumber. Search your ways and return in tshuva. The mitzvah is to hear the sound of the shofar, not to blow it, just to hear it, to listen, and let it wake us up. So we start with blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar.
Blessed are you, holy, present in our universe, who hallows us, who makes us holy with mitzvot, and commands us to hear the sound of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. And so we say the Shehechianu because we are so grateful for this moment. Blessed are you, holy presence in our universe, who has given us all life, who has sustained us and brought us to this Rosh HaShanah. So on Rosh HaShanah, we traditionally hear 3 sets of shofar blasts. Or to say it differently, for the new year, we are encouraged to wake up in 3 different meaningful ways. So this first set of shofar calls is intended to wake us up individually, internally, deep within ourselves and our souls. These shofar blasts call each of us to do the hard work of trying to be a better version of ourselves in the next year. Tekiah. Shivarim. Teruah. The second set of shofar calls is to wake us up to all the isms that still exist in our world today. Racism, sexism, ageism, classism, those things that are bigger than each of us and so ingrained in our society that at times it feels overwhelming. May the second set of shofar blasts call each of us to awaken to the systems that need reforming, that are the foundation of our society. So we say again, Tekiah. Shivarim. Teruah. And finally, the third set of shofar calls is intended to wake us up to the power of tomorrow. The power that tomorrow can be different from today. Tomorrow can have more peace, more tranquility, more acceptance, and more love. This last set of shofar blasts calls us to be creators of the world as it should be, rather than sustainers of the world as it is. Tekiah. Shivarim. Teruah. And finally, Tekiah Gedola. Yasher Koach to Alan for blowing the shofar for us. Thank you, Alan. And we continue in our service with the Aleinu, which carries the themes of the shofar service into our concluding blessings with a reminder that it is upon us to make the changes we want to see in our world.
So before we conclude this service with recitation of Kaddish and the singing of May the Memory, just a few announcements. I want to make sure everyone who is watching now live or will watch later on Rosh Hashanah, things that would be helpful to know, including the fact that after Rosh Hashanah, it is traditional. We do it at CRC every year when we're in person to do a ritual called Tashlich, casting off, in symbolically those missings of the marks that Rabbi Daniel talked about, casting them off into water. This year, on the website, you'll find what we're calling a DIY Tashlich. DIY. When I grew up, that was sort of the tagline of the punk rock movement. Do it yourself. And there was actually a great catalog put out in the 70s about doing Judaism yourself. But anyway, if you want to take that and or do your own thing, Tashlich, if you've never done Tashlich, this might be a nice time. It's supposed to be beautiful. It's beautiful out to go outside and to do the ritual of Tashlich. And then at 3:30 is our children's service, our Rosh Hashanah family service, with some surprises and music and video and prayers. Hope that you can join us. There is so all of that information can be on the website. And then, of course, 10 days from Rosh Hashanah is Yom Kippur. A week from tomorrow, there is a second day, Rosh Hashanah service at 10 o'clock this Sunday morning, tomorrow. And then a week from Sunday is Yom Kippur Kol Nidrei service at 7:30. And then 10 in the morning, a week from Monday for Yom Kippur, followed by Zoom breakout sessions, really interesting conversation, discussions, a way to really make it a yom, a day for growth and for spirit. There will also be a children's service for Yom Kippur, and of course we conclude with Yizkor, the service of memorial and remembrance, and then Nila, the final service of the Days of Awe, with one last Tikkiya Gidolah of the shofar. All of that will be online in the same platforms that you're watching the Rosh Hashanah service on, and you can also go to our website and it'll be right there live. Really quickly, Sukkot, which follows Yom Kippur a few days later with the full moon. We are partnering with a homeless shelter in the city called Gateway 180, so be on the lookout for some ways that you can help Gateway 180 be a shelter for those who need it most during our holiday of shelter. So those are some announcements, and we now transition to this notion that the memories of our loved ones are always a blessing. And I know that it's true for all of us. I've had my share of loss in these last couple of years and even in these last couple of weeks. And I know for all of us, it is true. As much as we mourn and as sad as it is to lose a loved one, their memories are forever a blessing. We reserve time at every single service to stop everything, to say names and to remember and to reflect on and to mourn those who have passed away, those we have loved and lost. And this morning, during this Kaddish time, in particular, the loss, the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, just last night, is heavy on our souls. This is a huge loss, an immeasurable loss. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, the first Jewish woman on the Supreme Court. Justice Ginsburg, who said, "Fight for the things you care about." And fight she did. And the things that Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought for and cared about were the things that so many of us care about as well. You know, last year at this time, Rabbi Arthur Waskow was visiting us at CRC, exactly a year ago this weekend, in fact. And last night, Rabbi Waskow, upon hearing the news of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he wrote a poem which he read as he lit Rosh Hashanah candles. And I'd like to read just an excerpt of that poem. "The fire that did not destroy the bush it burned in, as that inner fire burned in the heart of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The fire did not destroy, but loved and liberated women, loved and liberated black women and men denied the right to vote, sought to love and liberate us all. She became a great light of the American people, a great light of the Jewish people, calling forth the fire within us, each of us and all of us, our fire of love and liberation. For that love is as strong as death. Love's fire must never be extinguished, the fire in the heart of all creation." And so when we say Kaddish in a moment, I'm going to add to the name of Yida Ruchel bat Cyril Vilea. Yida Ruchel bat Cyril Vilea, which was Justice Ginsburg's Yiddish name, her Jewish name. Part of the Shemei Rabbah now, the great name of all the names of all the people who have graced our planet. And I'm going to ask that you take a moment at home and think of a name or names, or say a name or names of those who you're remembering from your life. Maybe a yard site at this time, or maybe you're in your year of mourning, or maybe because it's the holiday time, there are just people who you have lost, who you are thinking about during this time. Say their names and fill the air with the names of good and righteous and loving people. And know that all around, whoever's watching this service is doing the same thing. And also know that we will read as many names as possible at our Yizkor service, which is part of Yom Kippur Day, a week from Monday at 4 p.m. We will say the names of our members of our synagogue who have passed away, and those people who were related to members of our congregation, those names that we receive by email and text and phone calls. We want to make sure at that service of remembrance we say the names out loud. But for now, say those names in your own homes. And of course, we're also thinking about all of those who have died of this virus that we are battling. All those who have died from COVID-19, those who have died recently in the horrible fires out west, those who have died because of violence and bigotry and hatred, the kinds of deaths that we could reduce, minimize, if we really did the work that Ruth Bader Ginsburg urged us to do, which is to create a better, more loving, more gentle world. And so we think of all of them. We pour out our hearts for those who are mourning. We say their names, and together, in my home, in your homes, we recite our sacred words, Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai echon v'yom echon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be a blessing. Amen. So here we all are. And, I feel like I'm with you all in person. I really do. I feel your presence. And we're gonna conclude like we always do, trying to put our arms around each other and our arms around the whole world with blessing, as we say, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you always.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha.
May we all take a little bit of the light that hopefully we feel coming from each other and be agents to spread that light out into the world. out into the world.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom. May all that is good and high and holy push us to be honest with ourselves, honest with each other, so that as we go into this new year, it is with hope that it will be a sweeter, a healthier, and better year, closer to peace for all. Amen. And Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom.
And now at the beginning of a new year, we pray for a blessing.
The spirit of wisdom and understanding.
Amen.
The spirit of insight and knowledge.
Amen.
Together, the spirit of knowledge and reverence.
Amen.
May we overcome trouble, pain, and sorrow.
Amen.
May our days and our years increase.
Amen. Yehi ratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avuteinu, shetechadesh aleinu shana tova umetuka.
Eternal our God and God of our people, renew us for a good year.
Amen. 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 May it be a good year. May it be a healthy year. May it be a year of peace. May it be a year of peace. May it be a good year. May it be a healthy year.